I joined the New York City Police Department in 1965. Was assigned to Park Slope 7-2 precinct in uniform, where I made numerous arrests, a lot of them for auto crime. Recovered a lot of stolen autos. And made my first organized crime arrest in the 7-2. I had a sector after a while on foot patrol. And I had a guy that was taking numbers on one of my corners. He was an older man, and I felt bad for him, but I said, listen, you got to get out of my sector. I don't want you here. So I warned him once. The second time I came back, he was there taking numbers. So I arrested him. Well, that pissed off all the plainclothesmen in the borough office because that's their field of duty, They do all the wise guy arrests, all the gambling arrests. So they got so pissed off at me, they had me transferred. They did me a favor because they put me in Narcotics out in Queens. And I was there for 2 years, made a lot of arrests, and got promoted to detective. So I really scored when they transferred me. And now I was on my way to being a detective first grade that I wanted to be, but that took a long time. I didn't get second grade until 1989. From Queens Narcotics, I went to a borough-wide burglary robbery squad. Stayed there for quite a few years. And then I went to the Son of Sam Task Force, which was the 15th homicide zone. And we were charged with trying to find out if we had a serial killer in the Son of Sam, which we did. Within 2 or 3 months, we established the fact that there was the same shooter in three or four of the female homicides. So they moved us over to the 109 precinct and assigned a total of 60 detectives, 3 sergeants, a lieutenant, and a Captain Joe Borelli, which is a great guy, a good guy to work for. So I spent from 1976 to 1977 in the Son of Sam Task Force, and that's where I discovered the Katz homicide and the DeMeo crew, which come back to haunt me in 1983. Or 1979, really, and then 1980, and then 1983. And that's when it all came together. This is the 6-9 precinct in Canarsie, and this was the home of the 12th homicide zone in 1980, before the police department ended specialization and sent all the detectives out to individual squads. This is where I caught the Harvey Rosenberg homicide, which led to the Mangiatori-Scaturo homicide, which led to Dominic Montiglia, and 79 unsolved murders. When I was transferred out of here to the 6-7 squad, we were assigned by the lieutenant there to do all the cold cases. In my time there from 1980 to 1982, I worked on the Mangiatori-Scaturo homicide. 2 bodies found in the trunk in a cemetery not far from the precinct. We tracked the business of one of them back to a collision shop in the East 40s, and when we walked in there, it was like a shooting gallery. On the floor was puddles of empty bullet shells from 380 automatics. One here. There had to be at least 6 shooters using these 2 guys as targets. It was a shame. This kid Scaturo was only an innocent guy. Mangiatori was a guy that got involved with another wise guy's son in a fight in the disco, and the wise guy put a hit on Mangiatori with DeMeo. So, and they also wanted him to join the DeMeo crew in their auto crime. I still remember Mrs. Scatoro, one of the victims' mothers. It was a shame. The woman was brokenhearted. Later on, we were able to tell her who was responsible for the murder, and she was thankful for that. May 11th, 1979, it was in my office at the 12th homicide in 6-9 precinct in Canarsie. We got a call pretty close to 12 o'clock at night that uniform was sitting on a car at Flatbush Avenue, next to Floyd Bennett Field, with a dead body in it. So myself and my partner responded. We find a body in the car. The car was riddled with, looked like machine gun bullets, with waves of bullets. I recovered some 45 caliber bullets inside the car. The body has 1 foot over the console. Looked like it was moved. And the blood on the visible wounds was dry. So apparently the body wasn't shot in that location. As we're reviewing the scene, I turn to my left and look across the parkway, and there's a small Mercedes on the other side of the parkway staring at us. So I walk over, ask the guy for his driver's license. I look at the license, it's Joey Testa. A bell goes off in my head because I remember when I was in the Son of Sam Task Force in '75, I was sitting in the 15th homicide zone, and it was like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was reviewing some old homicide cases, and it was a homicide of a guy named Andre Katz. And I go into the file and I'm reading it, and sure as hell there's Joey Testa, Anthony Center, Harvey Rosenberg, Henry Borelli, all in this folder. And there was a trial on the murder of Katz. And these guys were all involved in it. And this guy I'm talking to in the street is Joey Testa, one of those guys. So I says, do you want to come around? You want to come across the street? I says, do you know the guy? He says, yeah, I think he's my friend. He said, Chris Rosenberg. I said, well, that's not what his driver's license says, so maybe you should come over. He says, no. He says, I'm just coming back from the hospital. I had a visit, relative. I want to go home across the bridge. So I let him go. I come back to this side of the street, and in the safety zone here, there's another small Mercedes. And in that one is a guy named Anthony Center. I don't go to the car because the car takes off. I take his license plates, and I run the license plate in the uniform car, and it comes back to him. It comes back to Anthony Center, second perp that was in the Katz file. I says to myself, all we need is Henry Borelli here, and we'll have the whole crew here. So anyway, we finish off at the scene, and I go to Harvey Rosenberg's house, which is on the other side of the bridge here, and make my notification to his wife, Stephanie Rosenberg. When I go into the house, go down the basement, not to my surprise, is Joey Testa, Anthony Center, and Henry Borelli. Neither one of them, all of them are crying, and nobody wants to talk to me. So I make my notification, and I go back to my office and do my paperwork. The time period, I get a phone call from an anonymous person, a male, who says, hey, the guy you found on Flatbush Avenue, a guy named Roy DeMeo did it. Had no knowledge of who Roy DeMeo was, except the Katz homicide file that he was in it. So now I reach out to the District Attorney's Office Intelligence, the FBI Intelligence, who's Roy DeMeo? Nobody knows. This is in '79. Later on, I find out they know who he is. And FBI knew who he was in 1977 by surveillance, but they never told me. Well, this is the way it goes. So now that case, the Chris Harvey Rosenberg murder, is an unsolved case until 1983, when I go to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Southern District of New York, and we arrest Dominic Monteglia, who gives us all a background on the Rosenberg homicide and how it's connected to a Cuban crisis between organized crime and the Cubans, and 5 murders that were committed in Anthony Santa's house, and an innocent kid by the name of Ragucci that gets killed near Roy's house in Massapequa. All have to do with this. Chief detectives assigned me to the U.S. Attorney's Office in 1983, where I stayed till 1989 and did 3 trials. U.S. versus Castellano, U.S. versus Westies, and U.S. versus the Commission. A total of 100 murders, 3 deaths, Gaggi, Castellano, and DeMeo. Then we did the Westies case, and we locked up 9 people on an indictment for 23 murders. Before we even started with that, the underboss of the Westies crime family came to the U.S. Attorney's Office and wanted a deal. He said he was wrongly convicted of a victim named Michael Holly, which he didn't do, he says. He said that the leader of the Westies, Jimmy Coonan, was setting him up because he didn't trust him anymore. So he says, if you could disprove that I didn't do that, I'll cooperate with you and I'll give you 23 murders. Mickey Featherstone, he was the underboss of the Westies crime family. So we set out, we wired Rikers Island, where Featherstone was incarcerated, because he was getting visits from the Westies, and recorded those conversations. We wired Mickey Featherstone's wife, Sissy, who finally got a confession off one of the perp, Billy Bokum, who felt bad that he helped convict Mickey, that he actually shot Holly, and was assisted by Kevin Kelly and a kid named Shannon. We had Shannon's car bugged, and we were following it all over Manhattan. They were dropping off drugs on the east side, and we were recording that conversation. When we were installing the recording in Shannon's car in his basement on East 92nd Street and First Avenue, Sergeant Patty, I forget the guy's name, it was a sergeant, first name was Patty. Anyway, he's putting the bug in the car, and one of the detectives was up on the 9th floor where Shannon lived, and he saw them coming out of the apartment, so he radios the sergeant downstairs installing the bug. He says they're on their way down. So as he's finishing up his job, the light for the elevator goes off in the basement where the car's parked. So he got nowhere to go. He jumps in the trunk and he closes it. Now, we're following Shannon's car all over the first, these comedy clubs and all these bars on the east side. And they finally parked the car in a desolated area, and he left it and went into one of the joints. So we knocked on Patty's trunk door, and he opened it, jumped out, jumped in our car, and we took off. There aren't too many funny stories, but that's one of them.
Yeah.
When you talk about people from Canarsie, it was a junkyard area, a lot of car places, car repair places. It was very well set up for auto crime. And that's where DeMeo was most prevalent in it. And his exporting business, big A exports from New York City to Kuwait, from Pier 22 in Newark, New Jersey. I mean, you're talking hundreds of cars. I mean, these guys were stealing 7 cars a night. And at that time, cars were worth like 20,000. It's quite far cry from today. You know, the car parts were worth a lot more. So the people that grew up, like Joey Testa and Anthony Center and Henry Borelli, they were into cars and stealing cars ever since they were in their teens. I mean, they used to get a guy to come in there, shoot him in the head, wrap his head with a towel, cut his throat, then put out a tarp on the floor, cut up his body, put him in black plastic bags and take him out to the fountain and dumps, and you never see them again. This is the apartment of Joe Guglielmo, a.k.a. Dracula, who was Roy DeMeo's cousin. And this is where a lot of the murders were committed, and they used to hang the bodies up in the bathroom there to drain the blood out of them before they dismembered them. We hit this place with a search warrant in 1983 or 84, and Joe Guglielmo was in there, and he says, you're not going to find nothing. Well, we searched, we didn't find too much in there, but what we did do is we ripped up a carpet in the closet going into the kitchen and recovered numerous .45 caliber machine gun bullets, which we knew was the weapon that killed Frank Amato, Paul Castellano's son-in-law. And that gun was fired by Nino Gaggi as a contract because Amato was cheating on his daughter. Then we went down the basement and we removed the drain pipe where they were draining the blood out of. And we sent that to the FBI for forensic analysis, and it came back inconclusive. Found a bunch of tools down here that could have been used for the dismemberment, but they come back inconclusive also.
So Joe Guglielmo is in there, right?
Yes.
What's the vibe? What's his vibe? What's he like in person when you see him?
He's kind of scary. He's an old man with gray hair. And, you can tell he was related to Nino because he looked this crazy. He, related to Roy DeMeo, not Gaggi. He didn't say too much, just that you're not going to find nothing, and kept his mouth shut.
Yeah, there's that famous photo in the Daily News of him sitting at the table while you guys are doing the raid.
That's correct.
Right.
He was sitting at the table and didn't move.
Right. So you did surveillance here a couple of times, you said, right? Watching the comings and goings of what was going on here?
Yeah, basically from across the street.
So you guys would be across the street over there?
But there were so many different law enforcement agencies looking for this guy. Seems strange. Look at this sign. It used to say the Gemini. Big changes. Maybe very appropriate that it's a church now.
Yeah, there's maybe a lot of evil to cleanse here.
That's correct. Very appropriate for all the bodies that they had to carry out of here. That poor kid, Sherry Golden, with John Quinn, in that auto crime thing. Kid was, I don't think she was 16 years old. Shot in the head and left in a car someplace far from here. And her boyfriend, John Quinn, also killed at the same time. They stole all his equipment for stolen cars, his machines to do titles and registrations. It was a glory find for them. The day that Roy gets killed, he's summoned to Patty Testa's house here in Canarsie by his favorite two sidekicks, Joey Testa and Anthony Senta, who tell him they got some money from meet them at Patty Testa's house in Canarsie. So Roy complies and comes over to the house, sitting in the kitchen, having a cup of coffee. And Joey and Testa and Anthony Senta walk up behind him and fill his head full of bullets. This is Patty Testa's house, where he lived, as far as I know, from 1983 to 1991 when he gets killed. Outside, parked here somewhere, was Frankie Lastarino, Casso's main shooter. He was ready when Joey or Anthony came out and told him that the deed was done, DeMeo was dead, and they were going to transport the body to someplace in Shipshead Bay. So Lastarino reports right to Casso that the deed is done. The contract is fulfilled. Frankie Lastarino was one of the main shooters for Anthony Casso. He was a made man in the Lucchese crime family. He finally died, I think, in 2023 or 2024, natural causes. But he killed a lot of people. We know he killed Bennett. We know he had something to do with DeMeo and numerous other ones. He was one of the unknown hitmen that we discovered in our investigation between 83 and 89. Very close to Anthony and Joey. They grew up together. Patty Testa, who lived in that house, was a big supplier of stolen cars. That was what he did. You know, he made a lot of money doing it and got indicted a lot of times for doing it. He was one of the big cheeses in DeMeo's auto crime group. Big A exports.
We're over here, by this old former Toys R Us. Across the street over there is Highway 2. So after they get Roy out of the Varuna Boat Club, they're going to tow that to Highway 2. Where they take that photo of the trunk apparently was taken across the street.
With this
at Highway
chandelier
2.
Inside of it.
Now,
but you know what? At that time, we were very rough with fucking, crime scenes. They should have never fucking opened that trunk at the club.
So you're saying they opened the trunk at
Snapped the trunk at the club.
Right, but then they towed it here.
They towed it here for forensics.
So you were there when they snapped that trunk?
Yeah, but then I went away, and I don't know what happened over here. They did their forensic thing in there.
Tell me about opening the trunk at the Varuna Club.
Well, the first thing we saw was this huge chandelier, and then Roy called up in a fetus position.
Now,
we were looking for that car for 10 days. As far as somebody saw it, smelled it, I guess.
Now, when you see that, what is you and the investigator's reaction?
That somebody he knew killed him. Because Roy, he didn't kill very easily. I mean, he's a guy that had a contract on him by Castellano to John Gotti. John Gotti came back to Castellano and said, hey, we can't get near him. He's got too many shooters around him. So Castellano was frustrated because he knows Roy is a cowboy and he's giving him a lot of bad publicity. So he goes to Anthony Casso and he says, listen, I want you to take out Roy and his two sidekicks, Anthony and Joey. So Casso tells Castellano, listen, I want to keep them I want to take them over to my crew. And I'm going to make Joey, if he does this thing and he kills Roy, so I'm going to make him in the Lucchese crime family. And that's actually what happens.
So you realize right away that's Roy DeMeo in that trunk.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So,
we were looking for him, and it's his car. We have the plate number.
No, I don't mean to act like you guys are unprofessional or whatever, but was there a sense of like, oh, well, that's that, good? were you somewhat happy about it, or did you?
We were happy we found the body because it could have went to the dump, and we would have never found it.
Yeah.
So I mean, everybody had the plate number. We were looking all over for the car, but we never found it. It took 10 days.
By the time that you guys found him, were you aware of the evil that he did?
Oh yeah, I mean, this thing was under investigation. I mean, I knew about him in '75 when I was in the Southern San Pasos. He comes up in the fold. I mean, he's not on trial with the crew, but he made an offer to one of the jurors to try to bribe them. Anyway, that case folded because the only witness against them was the girl, Babette Christel, who was the girl that set up Andre Katz and had him kidnapped by Rosenberg and the crew. Before I go over to the U.S. Attorney's Office, I was assigned to the Major Case Squad. Sergeant Hart was the boss, and we were 6 detectives. And we generally handled bank robberies, hijackings, and kidnappings. We had a lot of kidnappings going on, making a lot of overtime. And we had a special group of 6 detectives that were called the Organized Crime Homicide Task Force in the Major Case Squad. We would respond to all these Brooklyn homicides. Many of them were in Brooklyn anyway. And then report back to the house mouse, who was Stevie Caracappa, who had all this confidential information. Let me skip forward to 1983 when we went to Lake George with Montiglia. The only person that had that location was Caracappa back in the Major Case Squad. And he gave that location up because we got a phone call from the FBI saying, hey, they know where you guys are. Get out of there. So we had to pack up the family. I'm talking the wife, 3 kids. We took them across the straight line to Connecticut, put Dominic in a jail for the state troopers of Connecticut, and put the wife and the kids in a hotel room until the marshals could pick them up on the witness protection program. But that's the guy that gave us up. Now when we're doing the case, Walter Mack is reviewing the stuff that he's got on Pedro Paz. He finds out that Stevie Caracappa is the detective on the Paz case up in Brooklyn North Narcotics. And Dominic in 2021 tells us that Caracappa was a bodyguard for that guy Paz because he saw him there all the time. He was working that Cuban crisis thing.
Right, Pedro Paz was like a Cuban drug dealer.
Steve would prepare all the reports and have them ready for the chief detectives on all these organized crime hits. The homicide stats were way up in those days. I think they were in the thousands. After we locked these people up, down to the hundreds. You got to check my figures, I'm not sure. Anyway, I visit the Major Case Squad. I get transferred to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I'm visiting the Major Case Squad. I kept in contact with them and the Brooklyn South detectives, of course. That was where most of the murders were. I have a leather suitcase with my files in it, and I had a suspicion about Steve, so I leave the case on his desk, and I say, I got to go to the men's room, then I got to go up to Manhattan North. Oh, yeah, okay. So I figured to find his fingerprints on the fucking suitcase, right? So I come out, and the suitcase is still there, so I take it, and I go up to Manhattan South. You take the suitcase, lock it in the trunk, go inside, do what I got to do. Something to do with the Westies, I think. I come out and open my trunk. The suitcase is gone. With my murder files in there. So now they know some of the people that we're looking at, you know. So I call the FBI, I tell them what happened. They come over and they dust my car for prints. Comes back negative. Nothing ever happened with it. but I knew he did it. He told them where I was. They found my car. I had a 240Z Datsun stick shift, so it was easy to find. It was bronze.